Good sleep should come naturally, and with the new Natural Hybrid mattress, it can. A collaboration between Lisa and West Elm, the Natural Hybrid is expertly crafted from natural latex, natural wool, and certified safe foams to elevate your sleep sanctuary and support a greener tomorrow. Breathable organic cotton and moisture-wicking Joma wool consistently provide cool and comfortable slumber. Every purchase helps fuel Lisa's work with shelters and those in need. Visit lisa.com to learn more. That's LEESA.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Two-Footed Podcast here on EPL Index. Now, before we kick things off today, I just want to share something with everybody. This episode is brought to you by our partners at Sky Bet. We've teamed up with Sky Bet because they truly understand what it means to be a fan. Sky Bet appreciates the length that people go through to support their team in all areas, whether you're a match-going fan or otherwise, and there's just no better fit for us right now than a partnership with the good folks at Sky Bet. So with that said, let's go. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Tuesday. It is the 20th of August. I hope you're all well and having yourselves good days. I'm having a better day now that the sun has come out. It is absolutely horsed down with rain all day long. But within the last, I'd say 45 minutes to an hour, that's moved on. The sun is out. So it's improved my mood immeasurably, absolutely immeasurably. We had one game in the Premier League last night. Leicester City making their return to the Premier League after a one-season absence, hosting Tottenham. Tottenham came into the game with big expectations for the season, obviously having quite a good summer in terms of incomings, and Postecoglou is building something there. And they went 1-0 up through Pedro Porro. Tottenham had been very dominant to that point and could have been further ahead, but hadn't gotten the final action correct. But Porro's header from James Maddison's lovely clipped cross gave them the lead. Solanke should have scored at least one. He had a second chance as well that potentially he could do better with, but seemed to snatch at and just drive it rather than try and place it. Obviously, the nerves, the price tag, all of that playing a part. I expect he will get goals in that team. He's certainly going to get chances. But a man that you can rely on to get a goal is Jamie Vardy, who scored in the 57th minute to give Leicester a point on their home ground. They themselves had other chances in the second half, but a share of the spoils. Overall, probably a fair result. Don't think anyone could question that. And you just have to look at Jamie Vardy, who's 37, he'll turn 38 in January, had no pre-season, he's been injured, and yet comes in yesterday, plays well, looks like he's 28 again. How long he can sustain that for remains to be seen. Obviously, the last time we saw him in the Premier League, he scored 3 goals in 37 games. But let's factor in that Jamie Vardy is 37, right? So he turned 30 in January of 2017. So halfway through the 16-17 season. Now that year he only scored 13 goals in the league. After that, though, he scored 20 in 37, 18 in 34, 23 in 35, 15 in 34, and 15 in 25. Like, after turning 30, Jamie Vardy put together the best 5-year run of his career. Now, he'd obviously had better seasons. The year they won the league, he scores 24 goals. He didn't get to that number in any of the subsequent seasons, but he could have done in 21-22 when he gets 15 in 25, but injuries held him up that year. But that 5-year run after turning 30 does show for, clubs like Liverpool who are looking at the Mo Salah situation and wondering whether or not to commit to him long term. We do have track records of players past the age of 30 scoring a lot of goals. Vardy has 175 goals for Leicester. Most of them have come after the age of 30. 18 last year. I know it's championship, but that's his best season in the championship. He scored 18 last season at 36, 37. The year they got promoted the first time with him, he scored 16 and 37. So he had a better year last year than he did that year, despite it being 10 years later. So it just goes to show if players look after themselves and are smart and play to their strengths, they can absolutely still produce. It's also one of the reasons why when I look at someone like Darwin Núñez, I do think, yeah, he frustrates the life out of us all. But Jamie Vardy used to frustrate the life out of people as well. His first season with them, having joined from Fleetwood, he scored 4 goals in 26 championship matches. His first year in the Premier League, he scored 5 in 34. So it did feel like the 22-23 season was his farewell. 3 in 37. He just didn't look right. But it does just go to show players can bloom a little bit later. Nobody would have ever bet going into the 15-16 season. Nobody would have ever bet that Jamie Vardy would do what he did from there on. 7 years with double figures in goals, a low of 13, a high of 24. Like, he is just an outstanding footballer. And you look at his England career, he didn't get capped until 2017. Then in 2015. In 2016, he went mental and scored 5 goals in 10 games. He ended up with 26 caps and 7 goals. But, like, the goals he scores, Germany, the Netherlands, Turkey, Wales, Spain, Lithuania, fair enough, and Italy. 6 of his goals came against good teams. Now, admittedly, 5 of them are in friendlies, and the one against Wales was at the Euros, and Wales are probably the weakest of those teams, but still, it's a big rivalry game. And the thing I've always liked about Vardy is he makes the same run over and over and over again. Doesn't work out, doesn't matter. Try it again, try it again, try it again. He has put a hell of a lot into maintaining his body and turning himself around. And, years ago, he used to make a laugh and a joke about it. Allegedly used to turn up at training. This was at Leicester, not in the lower leagues, not with non-league teams. He used to turn up at Leicester still drunk from the night before. He used to talk about how he just drank Red Bull all day, didn't go to the gym or anything. He guaranteed he's in the gym all the time now. He can be guaranteed he's taking proper care of himself. And the results speak for themselves. And huge credit to him. Huge credit to him. It's a good result for Leicester. Spurs will be a little bit disappointed, but ultimately, if you go away on the opening day of the season and get a point, you can't be disappointed. Especially if you're playing a newly promoted team who are going to be hyped up, crowd's going to be right up for it. It's not a bad result. So winners and losers from this week's Premier League. So the first loser is going to be Everton because they were just shocking. Absolutely shocking. They looked the worst team in the league by a considerable margin. So they're the first loser. Second loser of the weekend, we're going to go with Nottingham Forest. Even though they didn't lose, that was a winnable home game. The circumstance of the game, conceding so late, very disappointing. Every point is going to matter for a team like Forest. We're going to be in that group battling against relegation. But the biggest thing is they lose Danilo, and he's going to be out for months at this point. Half the season more. So that's very, very tough. He's their best midfield player, and they lose him now for a prolonged period. That's going to hurt them. The final loser of the weekend then, for me, is just going to be Chelsea. Like, all the money spent, all the players signed. you go into the opening day, you're at home. I know it's City, right? I know it's City, so not losing to City. It's the manner of the defeat. City never broke sweat. Never got out of first gear. Just cruised through the game. No Rodri. No Stones. Foden on the bench. And yet they cruised past Chelsea. You're 1.3 billion in, and you've just been swallowed aside like a little brother. And to be fair, that's what they are. City are the big brother in terms of being state-owned, spending silly money, bit of flagrant cheating. And Chelsea, who were the daddy of doing that, they're just now the little brother. They're not state-owned, but they spend ridiculous money. There's definitely been some flagrant cheating, as we know, under Roman and under Bowley and co, because they've just ignored the profit and sustainability rules and tried to get workarounds by selling hotels to themselves at inflated value. And City are just on a different scale. And City have spent nothing. Not a penny this summer. They moved Savio from one of their academies into their first team group, and they sold Julian Alvarez for 80 million. City are up this summer. They've made other sales as well. Harwood Bellis was sold. Tommy Doyle was sold. City must have made well over the 100 million this season, or this summer. Manchester City, 24-25. Let's see. Right. Tommy Doyle out. Harwood Bellis out. Sarmiento out. Sergio Gomez out. Liam Delap out. City have brought in £136 million this summer. Now, they're claiming an outgoing of 21 based on Savinho. But, let's be honest, they haven't paid anybody for him because they own Troyes, who are now in the third division in France. So they're not getting 21 million. And, they've got more in on loan deals for Jan Coutu and Callum Doyle and players like this, Calvin Phillips. So, they've made an absolute killing this summer. Madness. Absolute madness. And Chelsea have spent stupid money. Absolutely stupid money. Again. And look as incoherent, as discombobulated, as disconnected as they ever did. They've bought Kellyman, Gui, Kieran Dewsbury Hall, Viega, Wiley, Jorgensen, Anselmino, and Neto. And yet they don't look any better at all. Now they have sold well. Maatson, Hall. I'd rather have them than have sold them, though. Hutchinson, fair play. Michael Golding, Mason Burstow, fair play. They've sold pretty well. But they're a mess. An absolute mess. And Gary Neville thinks they're going to finish fourth. So they're my third loser. My winners from the weekend, Brighton and Hove Albion. They just looked outstanding under Herzliya. Fun, exciting, fluid. Minta looks a star. João Pedro, I think, is going to have a big, big season. Mitoma looked back to his best, and they weren't even at full strength. No Enciso there, no Ferguson there, no Estupinan there. They're a team to keep a really strong eye on this season. Now, I still think they've got work to do, especially in defence, but they're trying to bring in Kadioglu, trying to bring in Matty O'Reilly, trying to bring in Buscagli. I maintain I think there's a sale coming. I think there's somebody going for big money. And maybe it is Estupinan. I'm not sure. But I think someone is going for big money. But I really admire what they've done thus far this summer. I loved the process they undertook for their manager search. Didn't panic, didn't rush. They had their targets in mind. They went down the path of looking at a couple, settled on one and went and got him. And early signs are very, very promising. Second winner of the weekend, I'm going to go with Aston Villa because I think they had the toughest win going to West Ham, missing a couple of players. A couple of players are still trying to bed in. West Ham have had a good summer, but, I thought Villa to go there, it was a fairly even game. A draw probably would have been fair, but for Villa to go there, keep chugging away and get the win, I think is really, really good. A good sign for them. And then I'm going to go with Brentford because I don't expect much from them this season. I actually think they're going to be in that group that, again, will struggle down at the bottom. I wouldn't be surprised if Thomas Frank doesn't last the season. It feels to me like it's all gone very stale there. Now, they are trying to address that currently in the transfer market, looking at multiple centre-backs to bring in. I can't believe they're not going to bring in a fullback. It just seems so bizarre to me. But it does look like they're going to add to the squad, which will help. But Tony looks like he's going to go. Igor Thiago was signed to replace him. He's out now for a number of months with a meniscus injury. You'd worry about Mbomo with injuries. You'd worry about Vissa a little bit with injuries. The midfield is good, but it's a little bit one-paced. It's a little bit predictable. They do their jobs well, but they do lack a little bit, They lack a little bit of just match breaking. But that was a good win because that's a good Palace team. Palace team that came into the season with big expectations, went there as favourites, and yet Brentford still put in the performance and got the win. So they're my winners for this week. Brighton, Aston Villa and Brentford. And the losers got to go Forest because of the injury and dropping points the way they did. You've got to go Chelsea because it's just funny. And Everton were just tragically bad. Tragically bad. But no doubt we'll finish 14th. Unless they get big points deductions. We'll see. Right, I'm going to go to break. When we come back, it's time for a quick look at the EFL. So see you after this. Right, welcome back. So, as you heard at the start of the program, this episode is brought to you by Sky Bet. And in the Sky Bet Championship at the weekend, we had some really good games. So Friday night, Coventry 3, Oxford United 2. Coventry went 1-up through Haji Wright. Then Kieran Brown equalised for Oxford. Milan Van Uyck put Coventry back ahead. In the second half, Mark Harris equalises for Oxford. Coventry were dominant all over them. Felt like it could have been an absolute battering, but Oxford clung on and clung on and clung on. But in the 96th minute, Haji Wright with the winner to give Mark Robbins' side the 3 points and get their season up and running. On Saturday then, we got West Brom 0, Leeds 0. Leeds have looked well off what was expected thus far. Derby County 1, Middlesbrough 0. Great win for newly promoted Derby. Caden Jackson with the only goal of the game in that one. Portsmouth 0, Luton 0. Portsmouth, newly promoted. Luton, just down from the Premier League. Now, after how the game played out, I actually think Portsmouth will be a bit disappointed because Thomas Kaminski, the Luton keeper, was sent off on 31 minutes. If you haven't seen it, go and watch what he did. It's mad. He could have got 2 red cards. He comes charging out of his box, clatters into a Portsmouth player, and then goes and clatters another one just for good measure. But he gets himself a red card. But Luton hung on for a 0-0 draw. Bristol 4, Millwall 3, another mental game. Mehmeti puts Bristol 1-up. Sinclair Armstrong makes it 2-0. Millwall roar back in the second half. Eze scores on 51. A Bradshaw penalty on 54. Duncan Watmore scores on 64. Looks like Bristol have just fallen to pieces. But Miulu scores on 78. And then Scott Twine, signed in the summer from Burnley, I think, gets the winner on 88. Scott Twine, before he went to Burnley, was actually very, very highly rated and seen as a player with a very bright future. Having come through at Swindon, then done really well at MK Dons, went to Burnley and was expected to play a big part under Company. Signed him for 4 million, but just never really got a look in. Went on loan last year to Hull, played pretty well there, but wasn't necessarily a starter. And then had a loan at Bristol in the second half of the season. Was in and out because he had some injuries, but Bristol decided to make it a permanent deal. Paid the 4 million that Burnley had paid. So Burnley didn't lose any money. But still, he hasn't kicked on the way he was expected to. He is now 25. But I think he can have a really good season in the Championship for Bristol. So keep an eye on him across the course of the year. Where are we going next? Plymouth won, Hull City won. Sissoko scores for Plymouth on 52. Louis Coyle equalises on 63. Share of the spoils there. Swansea 3, Preston 0. Matt Grimes, another one that when he first went there was very highly regarded, but again, for some reason, just hasn't quite kicked on and developed, but still, still had a decent time there. He's been there a long time now. He's there since 2015. He's played the better part of 300 games, maybe over 300 games for them. But while there, he's had 3 different loans. In recent years, he's become a regular, a stalwart for them the last kind of 6 years or so. But took him a while to get going, joining from Exeter. Him, Rico Henry and Ethan Ampadu, I think, all came through the Exeter Academy within a few years of each other. And it was one of the more productive academies in the kind of League One and below levels. And obviously Henry's gone on to do very well with Brentford. Ethan Ampadu is doing really well with Leeds. Twine was looking like a bit of a disappointment because he was like an attacking midfielder, a potential kind of seen as a kind of 10 to 12 goal a season in the league type player. He's never actually hit more than 5. I got 4 in the league last year, 5 in all competitions. He's kind of become more of a deeper playmaker type, sitting at the base of midfield and pinging the ball about. But he's become a good player, but not what he was expected to be. But great to see him on the score sheet. Abduli scores on 61 and Vipotnik on 83 to make it very, very comfortable for Swansea. Watford 3, Stoke City 0. Kayambe with 2, either side of a Ryan Andrews goal. Comfortable win for Watford. Very, very disappointing performance from Stoke. But it is early in the season, so we'll see what they become this year. Sheffield United 2, QPR 2. Gus Hammer scores on 6. Kiefer Moore scores on 13. Jimmy Dunn gets one back for QPR, formerly of Burnley. And then Jack Colbeck gets sent off on 83. So you just assume Sheffield United are at home, playing 10 men. They're going to hang on for the win here. But Lyndon Dykes on 88 minutes gives QPR a share of the spoils, and they head home very, very happy with their afternoon's work. Norwich 2, Blackburn 2. Ryan Hedges puts Blackburn ahead. Josh Sargent equalises. Borja Sainz puts Norwich 2-1 up. But Yuki Ohashi scores on 87, and it's a share of the spoils there as well. Burnley 5, Cardiff City 0. And Ethan Horvath own goal. Luka Kolyashu, Josh Brownhill, Zeki Mdouni, and Johan Berg Gudmundsson with the goals. And Burnley starting to already look like they might be a class above the rest of the division. Sunderland 4, Sheffield Wednesday 0. Dennis Serkin scores on 11. Mayenda scores on 15. Luke O'Nien scores on 24. And Mayenda scores again. Mayenda looks a player. He really does look a player. They might have something very special on their hands in this Spanish forward. They signed him from Socha, I think, a year ago. And he spent part of last season on loan at Hibs, but barely played. But he does look like he might have something about him. He really does. He's quick, he's powerful, he's got good instincts in the box. seems quite a direct player as well. Keep an eye on him this year, just as a young player with potential eyes on the Premier League in future. Now, there's a couple of players at Sunderland who I think could absolutely play in the Premier League. Jack Clarke, obviously. I think Joe Bellingham, he's playing a bit deeper this year, and I have to say I've been impressed. I love that Luke O'Nien is playing at centre-back, considering when they bought him, he was an attacking midfielder. They've got some good players in that squad. They've scouted quite well. I like Leo Gjeld, formerly of Celtic and Leeds. I really like Pierre Ekwa. I'm not sure why he's not in the team at the moment, because I think he's probably the best midfielder they've got, but we'll see. But Jack Clarke is probably the best player at the club, and he's one that might get a Premier League move before the window closes. So Burnley and Sunderland are joined by Watford on being 2 wins from 6 points. And then it is Blackburn, West Brom, Bristol, Blackburn, West Brom and Bristol on 4. Swansea, Oxford, Sheffield Wednesday, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Derby and Stoke all on 3. Sheffield United, Portsmouth and Leeds and Hull on 2. And then you've got QPR, Norwich, Luton, Plymouth, Millwall, Preston and Cardiff. Millwall, Preston and Cardiff have no points. QPR, Norwich, Luton, Plymouth have 1 point. Not a good start for Luton, not a good start for Leeds, but Burnley are roaring into form early on. Moving into the EFL League 1, Charlton Athletic 1, Leyton Orient 0, Shrewsbury 1, Peterborough 4, Northampton Town 2, Exeter 1, Huddersfield 2, Stevenage 1, Lincoln 1, Barnsley 2, Rotherham 0, Bristol Rovers 0, Reading 2, Wigan 0. Wigan with a really disappointing start to the season so far. Mansfield 3, Burton 3, Cambridge United 0, Crawley 1, Blackpool 0, Stockport 3, Wycombe 2, Birmingham City 3, obviously the big money spenders, and then Bolton 0, Wrexham 0. Now that's a good result for Wrexham, because Bolton will be one of the favourites to come out of the division this year, and obviously Wrexham are newly promoted to it. But I think there's a lot of people that would probably have Wrexham in their inner circle of potential playoff teams as well. So Stockport, Huddersfield, Crawley and Charlton are all 2 wins from 2, 6 points. Reading, Mansfield, Birmingham, Wrexham, Bolton, Bristol Rovers, they've all got 4. Peterborough, Lincoln, Barnsley, Northampton, Stevenage and Exeter all on 3. Burton and Rotherham have 1 point each. Wycombe, Leyton Orient, Cambridge, Wigan, Blackpool and Shrewsbury all with no points. And like I say, I know Wigan sold their best defender and their captain, but there is some expectation there. It's a club that have obviously been in the Premier League in the not too distant past, although at this point it probably is, 12 years since they were in the Premier League. But they were in the Premier League a couple of times for a number of years. They still have those ambitions, but right now they don't look anything like a team with even championship ambitions. In League 2, Bromley 2, AFC Wimbledon 0, Carlisle 1, Barrow 0, Accrington Stanley 3, Harrogate 3, Swindon Town 0, Walsall 4, Newport County 3, Doncaster 1, Crewe Alexandra 0, Chesterfield 5, Grimsby Town 3, Cheltenham 2, Colchester 2, MK Dons 0, Morecambe 0, Gillingham 1, Port Vale 0, Tranmere 0, Bradford City 0, Salford City 0, Notts County 2, Fleetwood 2. So you have Walsall, Gillingham and Bromley all with 6 points. Chesterfield, Port Vale and Fleetwood with 4. Newport County, Doncaster, Cheltenham, AFC Wimbledon, Colchester, Grimsby, Barrow and Carlisle with 3. Notts County and Tranmere with 2. Harrogate, Salford, Accrington Stanley and Swindon with 1. Morecambe, MK Dons and Crewe Alexandra with no points. Crewe sitting bottom of the EFL League 2, brought to you by Skybet, with a -6 goal difference. -6. No goals scored, 6 conceded. Not going well thus far for Crewe, which, as an older person who has long admired them for their academy and the way they went about their business, it makes me feel sad. But then when you understand what went on there behind the scenes, maybe it is a little bit of karma that might send them out of the Football League, because some of the behaviour, well, it's just vile what went on there. We might as well have a look at the National League. Halifax 0, Aldershot 1, Rochdale 1, Dagenham and Redbridge 1, Wealdstone 0, Oldham 1, York City 2, Tamworth 0, Woking 0, Gateshead 2, Eastleigh 4, Field 2, Boston United 0, Forest Green 4, Hartlepool 0, Southend 0, Braintree 0, Yeovil 1, Ebbsfleet 1, Barnet 2, Sutton 5, Altrincham 0, Solihull Moors 2, Maidenhead 1. So, league table, Gateshead, Eastleigh and Oldham all have 6 points. Sutton, Forest Green, Rochdale, York City, Aldershot, Dagenham, Redbridge and Hartlepool all have 4. Solihull Moors, Barnet, Halifax, Yeovil, Field and Altrincham have 3. Southend have 2. Tamworth have 1. Wealdstone, Maidenhead, Woking, Braintree, Ebbsfleet and Boston with no points. We are going to do a little bit of manager watch. So we've obviously had a quick look there at Wayne Rooney at Plymouth. They got themselves a solid draw, I would say, at home to Hull. Obviously, good win in the week over Cheltenham in the EFL Cup, but got pumped in match week 1 by Sheffield United. So getting a point at home to Hull is a good result for them. Even though Hull are much weaker than last year, Plymouth are a side that are only 1 year in the division, so they've still got a lot of work to do to kind of establish themselves at that level. And I'm not sure Wayne Rooney is who I would have appointed to try and do that, but such is the way it is. Robbie Savage, will we check in with him? How did Macclesfield do at the weekend? They beat Guiseley 3-1. So 3 wins from 3 for our mate Robbie Savage. Beat Worksop Town 1-0, beat Prescott Tables 1-0, and then beat Guiseley by 3-1. They're playing again today, actually. They're away to Ilkeston Town, and that should be a tough one for them, but we'll see how Mr. Savage gets on. Been a really good start. For Macclesfield. And, he'll be very happy with himself, I'm sure. But, of course, what we really want to know is, how did Big Dunk do at the weekend? How is it that Inverness got on? They were home to Montrose. Montrose had a man sent off and still got a 1-1 draw. So Kane Hester put Montrose 1-0 up on 20 minutes. Sean Dillon was sent off just before half-time. Inverness absolutely battered them. 17 shots to 2, 7 on target to 1. And Adam McKinnon on 63 minutes rescues a point for Big Dunk and Inverness Caledonian Thistle. So in the Scottish League One, recently relegated from the Championship, Inverness are 8th in the table, 1 point off the bottom. So congrats to them for that. It's all going swimmingly under our friend Big Dunk, and we'll just check in on the managerial record, of course, because couldn't let a week go by without updating the stats. 44 games now with Inverness, 14 wins, 15 draws, 15 defeats. A spectacular record. Not quite the 18 games, 1 win, 3 draws and 14 defeats that he had with Forest Green. But you know, what's going to live up to that? So for the career, big dunk. 67 games, 16 defeats, 21 draws. Sorry, 67 games, 16 wins, 21 draws, and 30 defeats. 23.88% is the win record. 2 relegations to his name. And we're giving him full blame for both of them. Because he took over at Inverness in September. He didn't get relegated until June. So he's getting full blame for that. And he's 100% getting the blame for Forest Green. What an absolute catastrophe. Right. We might as well quickly, do we have time? Yeah, we'll have a quick gander around the main European leagues, which kicked off at the weekend. Now, there was no Bundesliga action. It is back this weekend, and we'll talk about it maybe on Thursday. I won't be here tomorrow, but we'll talk about the Bundesliga kicking off on Thursday. We did, however, have the Super Cup in Germany, and Bayer Leverkusen took on Stuttgart. Stuttgart came from behind after Victor Boniface put Leverkusen in front to go 2-1 up. Enzo Malo and Dennis Undav. But of course, because it's Bayer Leverkusen, a Patrick Schick goal in the 88th minute sent that game to penalties, and Leverkusen would go on to win. Worth pointing out, Martin Terrier on his debut was sent off for Leverkusen on 37 minutes, which isn't a great start to life for him. They were missing a couple of players. Notably no Jonathan Tha. Andrich forced to play in defence. I did note Garcia playing in midfield. I think Palacios is out injured at the moment. Tella and Belachian as the wing backs, who would normally be Frimpong and Grimaldo. So yeah, Florian Wirtz started on the bench as well. So not close to their best 11 by any stretch, but more than enough in it to get the draw and then win the penalty shootout. And fair play to them. Congrats on that to Bayer Leverkusen. In La Liga, Athletic Club de Bilbao 1, Getafe 1, Real Betis 1, Girona 1, Celta Vigo 2, Alaves 1, Las Palmas 2, Sevilla 2, Osasuna 1, Leganes 1, Valencia 1, Barcelona 2, Real Sociedad 1, Rayo Vallecano 2, that's a big upset, Mallorca 1, Real Madrid 1. So Real go 1 up through Rodrigo. Moriki scores on 53, and then Ferland Mendy sent off in stoppage time. So bad result for Real, but they won't really be too perturbed by game 1. Valladolid 1, Espanyol 0, and Villarreal 2, Atletico Madrid 2. So that was match week 1 in Spain. In Italy, Genoa 2, Inter 2. Thrilled because they took our goalkeeper, and we got a late goal to equalise and rob a point off them. Parma 1, Fiorentina 1. Milan 2, Torino 2. Empoli 0, Monza 0. Verona 3, Napoli 0. That's a disastrous result for Napoli. An absolutely catastrophic result. And there's going to be major question marks. There's already talk that Conte is ready to walk out the door because it's such a shambles behind the scenes. Bologna 1, Udinese 1. Cagliari 0, Roma 0. Lazio 3, Venezia 1. Lecce 0, Atalanta 4. And then Juventus in the first game of the Thiago Motta era, beating Como by 3 goals to 0. And Bengula with the opener, Timothy Weah with the second, Andrea Cambiaso with the third. Interesting team from Motta in his first game. Locatelli and Thuram in a double pivot. No Douglas Luiz, he came off the bench. Weah starting. Yildiz is the 10 I do like behind Vlahovic. And Look, both wingers scored. One of the fullbacks scored. The other one looked good in his debut in Cabal. Di Gregorio had a fairly comfortable afternoon. No shots on target, so no saves to make. But they've still got players to bring in, players in the squad that can improve them. We'll see how Juve do this season. Como, this is sort of what would have been good a few years ago, 11. No Varane yet, he's not ready. Pepe Reina in goal. Guy's favourite, Alberto Moreno, played right back. Patrick Cutrone played up front with Andrea Bellotti. 5 years ago, that would have been a really exciting front pair. I am very interested to see how Simone Verdi come off the bench. I am very, very curious to see how Cesc Fabregas does. I have to say, I am very, very curious. It's a couple of decent players. I think Daniele Baselli is in the midfield as well. Another one that 5 years ago would have been really interesting. So yeah, we'll see how they do. Might as well jump to France next. Le Havre 1, PSG 4. Brest 1, Marseille 5. Reims 0, Lille 2. Monaco 1, Saint-Etienne 0. Auxerre 2, Nice 1. Montpellier 1, Strasbourg 1. Toulouse 0, Nantes 0. Angers 0, Lens 1. And Rennes 3, Lyon 0. It's a good win for Rennes. Portugal, please can check out next. Here we go. Right, this was match week 2, obviously, for Portugal. Santa Clara 0, Porto 2. Gil Vicente 4, AVS 2. Rio Ave 1, Farense 0. Nacional 1, Sporting 6. Benfica 3, Casapia 0. Morenense 3, Aruca 1. Vitoria 1, Estoril Pereira 0. Boavista 0, Braga 1. And Estrela Amadora 0, Famalicão 3. Where else can we have a look? Let's look at the Eredivisie and see what is taking place. This was match week 2. If you missed match week 1, the things to know are that Feyenoord drew with Willem II, PSV hammered Walwick, and Ajax stumbled to win over Heerenveen. In match week 2, Fortuna Sittard 3, Almere 0, Heerenveen 1, Utrecht 1, Twente 1, Sparta Rotterdam 1, Alkmaar 1, NEC 0, Walwick 1, Groningen 2, Heracles 1, PSV 3, Zwolle 1, Feyenoord 5, Willem II 2, Go Ahead Eagles 0, and NAC Breda 2, Ajax 1. So Ajax doesn't look great for them. Now, eyes might have been off the prize a little bit considering they are also in European competition and played midweek, but still not great. And I suppose we could have a quick look at the top flight in Scotland rather than just focusing on the lower leagues in Scotland. There were no Scottish Premiership games at the weekend, but two match weeks have taken place. Match week 1, Hearts 0, Rangers 0, Motherwell 0, Ross County 0, Dundee United 2, Dundee 2, St Mirren 3, Hibernian 0, Celtic 4, Kilmarnock 0, St Johnstone 1, Aberdeen 2. In match week 2, Rangers beat Motherwell 2-1. Ross County and Dundee United played at a 1-1 draw. Dundee beat Hearts 3-1. Celtic went to Hibernian and beat them 2-0. Kilmarnock 0, St Johnstone 3, Aberdeen 3, St Mirren 1. Matches in the Scottish Premiership will return this coming weekend. At the weekend, there were Scottish League Cup games. That's what we got at the weekend. So Dundee 6, Airdrie 1, Falkirk 2, Hearts 0. It's a bad result for Hearts. Aberdeen 1, Queen's Park 1, Spartans 1. Excuse me. Spartans 1, Ross County 1. Sorry, Ross County 0. Rangers 2, St Johnstone 0, Motherwell 1, Kilmarnock 0, Dundee United 1, St Mirren 0, and Celtic 3, Hibernian 1. So there we are, all caught up all around Europe. I'll be back after this break. Right, welcome back. So, we've got a bunch of transfer news going on. So, Burnley have accepted an offer of £25 million for Sander Berge from Fulham. So, it looks like he is the one tagged to be the replacement for João Palhinha. A different type of player, but a good player, a good fit at that level. It looked like it would be McTominay for Fulham, but I think United were asking for silly money, 35-40 million. Sander Berge looked like he was going to go to United at one point, but it appears like he will go to Fulham. And I think that's a pretty good signing for them at that price. Burnley also set to lose Darragh O'Shea, by the sounds of things, set to go to Brentford. And David Ornstein reporting today that Brentford are also trying to sign Sepp Vandenberg from Liverpool for fee in excess of 20 million. Wolves have made a loan bid for Aaron Ramsdale, which would be a loan with an obligation to buy in 12 months if he hits certain key points. Chris Sutton has warned Ivan Toney about going to Saudi Arabia, says it will be a waste of his career for a player in his peak who's obviously in the England reckoning. I do tend to agree, but as I said yesterday, when I look at the fact that he's played almost his entire career to this point earning lower league money, I could understand if he decided to make the move. I could understand that if he decided, look, do you know what? I just want to go and make money and secure my family's future because I haven't made enough money to this point. We have our first managerial change of the season. So after match week 1, in which they lost 2-0 at home to Sheffield United, Preston North End decided to sack Ryan Lowe. Ryan Lowe had been there since 2021 when he joined from Plymouth. He was previously manager at Burnley, and now he has been fired. And the club have said, he said he wanted to leave, yada, yada, mutual consent. It's a dreadful look for all involved, the mutual consent thing, because it's the first game of the season. You had all of the summer, all of pre-season to make these decisions. And now you've got to start over with a new manager. However, they have appointed Paul Heckingbottom. Now, he's obviously been out of a job since being sacked by Sheffield United, but he did take them into the Premier League, so he has done well in a recent job. He's proven as an operator in the Championship. He hasn't always done well at different clubs. He did well at Barnsley, not so well at Leeds. He did okay at Hibs, made them tough to beat. But then you'd have to say he did well at Sheffield United, getting them promoted back into the Premier League. But that's our first managerial change of the season. So, Troy Deeney has picked his first team of the week, and let's have a look and see how wrong it is. So he's gone Nick Pope. No problem there. That's a good pick. He's picked Trent at right back. Fair play. This actually looks like it might be a real team. He's gone with Harry Maguire, though, at centre-back, and I can't get on board with that. I also can't get on board with Ruben Diaz, who didn't have a whole lot to do against Chelsea, and what he did do wasn't overly convincing. He's picked Dan Burn at left-back. I take umbrage with this because Dan Burn played centre-back at the weekend. Now, I would have picked Dan Burn as one of my centre-backs because I did think he played really well for the Toon, but he didn't play left-back. In midfield, he's gone Onana, he's gone Kovacic. They both scored. I wonder, is that why? Now, they did both play well, but there were other midfielders I thought played equally as well. He's gone Matoma as a 10, so that's a no. He's gone Saka, absolutely, he was great, but so was Salah, so he stuck Salah on the left, and I take issue with that. And then he's picked Kai Havertz up front, which just tells me you didn't actually watch ton of football at the weekend. He scored a good goal, but he didn't smash it and play really well. He was okay. And then he picked Eddie Howe as his manager. Now, let's be all honest here. That's a Brexit pick. I understand they had 10 men. They were playing a newly promoted team at home and they had 22% of the ball. You parked the bus and hoped for the best, and your players rescued you. Eddie Howe did not manage that game well. So that is some nonsense from Troy Deeney. On to the gossip then. Chelsea and England forward Raheem Sterling has been the subject of an inquiry from Juventus. It'd be a great move for him. There is some talk about him going to Juve and Federico Chiesa going to Chelsea, which would be a horrible move for Chiesa, but a good move for Sterling. Saudi Pro League side Al Hilal have Kyle Walker and João Cancelo on their transfer shortlist. I could see them getting Cancelo. I think Walker will stay another year. Man City are interested in signing Ilkay Gundogan. They obviously had him before. He was brilliant for them. He went to Barca a year ago. And City could use him. So yeah, I could see that happening. Real Sociedad are refusing to lower their valuation for Mikel Moreno, nor should they. I know he's got 12 months left, but, hold out for what you want, see what you can get. Brentford are expecting Ivan Toney to join Al Ahly and are hoping to receive about 50 million. So fair. However, Chelsea could be tempted to making a late move. No, it won't happen. Fulham are considering whether to go back to Crystal Palace with another bid for Joachim Andersen. I don't think they'll accept at this point. Fulham are also preparing a third bid for Scott McTominay. That turned out to be nonsense. Arsenal have rejected a bid of 25 million plus add-ons for Eddie Nketiah. There's also a report that Eddie Nketiah is refusing to lower his £120,000 a week wages, and Forest aren't willing to pay anything like that. Newcastle still believe they can sign Mark Guay, but they're also considering Joe Gomez and Trevoh Chalobah. I think Chalobah's the one that makes sense for them. He's the cheapest of the three. He's the most versatile of the three. And he doesn't block you from going again next summer and signing a top-class partner for Botman, because he can play right back, centre back, left side centre back, holding midfield. He fits in a three. He is your defensive Swiss Army knife. Go and get Trevoh Chalobah, and then in a year, you try for Guehi again, because he'll only have a year left in his contract and that price will come down. That's what I would do. Manchester United are willing to wait until deadline day with the hope that PSG will lower their £51 million valuation for Manuel Ugarte. There's also some talk from Romano about a season-long loan with an obligation to buy. I don't see that being something that PSG would do, but maybe they will. Maybe United sweeten the pot for them. Giovanni Lo Celso attracting interest from Villa, Betis and Roma. Everton have inquired about triggering the 51.2 million release clause for Atletico Minero's 18-year-old Spanish forward Alison Santana. Let me assure you that there's absolutely no truth in that at all. That is the biggest pile of garbage you're ever going to read. Everton don't have anything close to that sort of money. Now, the kid is meant to be immensely talented and will most likely be in Europe soon enough, but Everton don't have that kind of juice. Nottingham Forest are considering a fresh bid for Santiago Jimenez after their initial offer of 21.3 million was rejected. He'd be a great signing for them. Wolves are monitoring Anil Ahmedhodzic. I think a few clubs are. Fulham have been mentioned, Brentford have been mentioned, Ipswich have been mentioned. I think he'll be in the Premier League this coming season. Chelsea have informed Napoli they want at least 34 million for Romelu Lukaku and are set to reject a loan with a 25.6 million obligation to buy. Now, it is danger Ben, so it could be garbage. Bashir Humphreys is set to join Burnley on loan with an obligation to buy. That's a great get for Burnley. Good backup for Esteve. He can also play left back. He's a good player. I like him. It's probably based on them coming up, but with O'Shea leaving, that's one that makes a ton of sense. And Burnley's Brazilian defender Vitinho has agreed personal terms to join Botafogo. It's from a Brazilian outlet. It may or may not be true. He's a good player. I'd be surprised if Burnley were willing to let him go, but his wages might... Well, they signed him in the Championship, didn't they? So his wages aren't going to be Premier League high. Yeah, we'll see. Right, folks, that's me for today. Not here tomorrow, but I'm back on Thursday. So have yourselves a good couple of days, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.